Lemon Amiga presents.
Mein Leben!
A Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga game guide and review. This time we'll be checking out 8-Bit Killer, and you can see from the installation we can run that game in a variety of screen modes using the UAE package, even full screen 16-bit PC modes. But for this one, let's just choose Medres Interlaced and let's press OK, and hopefully let's run this game and check this game out. 8-Bit Killer is a Gloom modification, and just like all Gloom mods, it appears with the same menu. From here we can change our controller options, and we can even select a 2-player mode. We can remote link computers together, and we can also change the messy and meaty option, and one of those will keep the bodies lying around on the screen, one of those won't. And developed by us. Well, as we shall see later on, this has been developed by an independent person, and this is a conversion of a PC game. So let's just get rid of that Amiga pointer and check out level 1. As you can see, from the start we'll have to change our screen, and for this let's check out the full screen experience, and we can also switch off the ceiling and the floor as well. Bit Killer was originally released in 2008 on the PC, and it was released by Loco Malito, and he's still creating games on PC to this day. And well, that came out in 2008, which is 10 years ago, and this was converted to the Amiga in 2014 by the person you can see on the screen at the moment, and he converted a total conversion of this onto the Amiga using the Gloom engine. This is our first Gloom modification, not written and created by Nitamitiwaki. This is an independent, and there are quite a few Gloom mods dotted around. You can see, just like all Gloom games and just like old Doom games, you can find hidden things in the scenery, and just like most Doom games, it turns into a wall hugger later on when you are trying to find your way out. At the moment I'm using the joystick, and that means that controlling this thing is a little bit easier, but we cannot strafe, and the ability to strafe is essential in these games. Finding the end of level boss, it really is difficult to get around the corners with the joystick, and I definitely recommend either a multi-button controller, a CD32 controller, or, as I'm rapidly finding out, I'm going to have to revert to the keyboard, because the keyboard in this case is how you play the best Doom games, because you have instant control. That's my first death in the game, and that's my first warm-up, and that's actually the very first time I've seen this. So now that we had a quick warm-up, let's just switch over to the keyboard so that I can actually play it, and let's load up level 1 again, and hopefully this time we can strafe. But unfortunately, due to my keyboard configuration, I can't strafe and run at the same time. But that's no problem, at least we can save some energy. In 8-Bit Killer, we face a load of minions, and these minions have to be blown away, of course, and the blocky environment of this game means that this is a homage to 8-bit games, or at least what they could have looked like if you could have got Doom or Gloom running on an 8-bit computer. It's not beyond the realms of impossibility because they've managed Doom on the Atari 2600, but it's definitely something which was easier on the PC. And yes, John Romero, if you're watching this, the Amiga is still alive, and your game did not demolish our platform, and in fact you demolished the IBM PC with your game. So jumping straight through the mini bosses, we find the massive boss right at the end, and you can see that this 2014 release is difficult, and we're actually going to continue, and hopefully this time we'll be able to stalk the aliens a little bit more on the cautious side. Bit Killer looks easy on the surface, but underneath all of that it's a stalk 'em up, and you'll have to stalk around every one of these corners in order to take on the enemies without taking on damage. And just like this, if the enemy gets stuck around that corner, then it's our job to not face that, just to simply stand on the corner and wait for that emerging, and once it has emerged you can pick off a leg and destroy the beast. Unfortunately, the walls are definitely bullet sponges, and if you fire into the wall, then you will achieve nothing. Once the boss has been unleashed, you will hear that firepower all the way through that level, and now all we need to do is to fight our way all the way back and admire all these chunks of body parts flying all over the place which stay around on the level. And you can see the end of level boss in this case has some firepower, so what we're going to do is to lure that guy around this corner and use our favourite trick, hopefully to save some health. You may notice the health is at a premium, and this is only level 1, so you can't afford to rush gung-ho into this game. Just like X-Men 32 Mind games that we reviewed, the end of level bosses are very difficult, and you have to run away and you have to preserve that energy because we only have a little bit left. And hopefully now that that is history, we can simply walk to the exit and move on to the second level, or at least it would be if we didn't have some more of these little bosses to knock out in the meantime. And these things really do sap the energy, and at this stage we only have the minimum firepower. Thankfully now that's the end of the level, and all we have to do is to make our way to the switch at the end, and that will switch us to the next one. And I think there are 8 levels in the game, and we'll be venturing on towards level 5 in this playthrough. You can see on the second level it introduces us to some crates, and later on we will find buses and trains and trucks and all kinds of things in these levels. But for now the most important thing is to collect the upgrades and hopefully to survive, which in this kind of environment with multiple attackers all over the place, it's very difficult, and you will find yourself running to find some cover. To help us, we can also find some power-ups, and we can also find things like invincibility, but for now we've picked up the bouncing bullets, which means that they should ricochet off the sides of walls, and it means that we can now fire around corners. And yes, just in case you thought we'd forgotten about the double bullet effect, yes, it's here in this game as well. And look at that weedy amount of health I've managed to pick up after that onslaught. We are now in the second level, and you can see that we do have double bullets temporarily, but that effect does wear off, but I think the bouncing bullets stay around forever. The only thing missing from the Gloom modifications, and even from Gloom itself, is a bit of music, and they would have needed to incorporate an interrupt routine into the game so that it played music and the sound effects together, but they could have played a module in the background. Because modules are only a few 100k, it wouldn't have hurt the memory limitations in a game like this. You can hear that this is the module that I played in the intro. This is Rock with Wolfenstein, sent in by a fan of the show, Mike Scholes, and you can hear that this has rather got a German influence. on the Amiga, I'm trying to find my way out of this maze, and when that happens, it's another wall-hugging experiment. You have to fire into everything, just in case something moves, and while that isn't happening, it can be a pretty crazy time trying to find your way out. But one of these things does work eventually. Finally, we find that exit, and it's guarded by a guardian, of course. That's what guardians are guardians for. They guard stuff, and so we'll have to dispose of this and knock it into silicon heaven, or whatever it is that these things go to. And yes, these things are really easy compared to some of the enemies in Doom and indeed Gloom. In 8-Bit Killer, you'll find a range of enemies and a range of guardians as well. Some of those are easy, some of those aren't so easy, but if you face a guardian, it's best to run in the opposite direction and fire forwards and strafe left and right. And of course, I'm trying to find the Master Guardian at the end of all of this. And sometimes the levels actually wrap around themselves, and sometimes this can unleash a horde of new enemies who will then attack you as soon as you move out of the current area. As you can see, by the end of the level, it is chock-a-block with dead bodies, and that's a good feeling. And this game is not a pushover, even though it looks easy, it is absolutely not. So now that we've got our first weapons upgrade, now we're on the second weapon, it should mean that this game is a little bit easier from now on. And it even gives us the rebounding bullets still, so there is a lot of action on this screen. Sometimes, like the original Gloom, this game can be shocking. If you walk into an area and you find something that you weren't expecting, then you will find a shock, and it's gung-ho time and blast everything into it, and then it means you can progress on to that next level. And I'm not quite sure whether you can run and grab the switch before the Guardian has appeared, but in this case we are on to level 4 of the 5, which I'll be showing you in this play guide. This is my very first try of the game, and I definitely recommend keyboard for playing this, and I definitely recommend taking your time and creeping around all the corners to get the most enjoyment from it. Just like Doom, you'll have to hang around and wait for those enemies to find you, and if you back up against a hidden wall and it suddenly opens to find enemies in there, then you will find yourself pinned down. And so the art of this game is to stay on the move, and if you see bullets, then that's where the enemies are, and that's where you need to fire. In this case, I'm choosing to save that health, knowing that my health is going to bottom out as soon as I see the end of level Guardian, which is through one of these doors, and as soon as one of those doors opens, and it could be triggered by killing all the enemies, but mostly it's by switches, and you may notice that some of these walls actually contain switches, and some of the doors can simply open just on their own. And so it's one of those trial and error games, and as far as you play this, you will get just a little bit further every time. We have now released the end of level Guardian. As you can see, something is running towards us, and sometimes you can outmaneuver that thing and keep running around the corners, and that means it should slow down, but it will keep track of us. And if you see huge balls of fire and basically lasers flying in my direction, it means that it's a big one. It's one of these mini Guardians like this, so you'll have to stay out of its way until, that is, you actually get the weapons upgrades. Because we died once, we were reduced one level, so we're still on level 2 firepower, but it's only Mark 1 out of the 5 upgrades that we could have had, and because we haven't got the bouncing bullets either, it means that we are penalised and we are limited in our range of attacks. So it's important to stay alive and to keep all those power-ups to stand the best chance of completing the game. Thankfully the game giving us a break, putting us up to stage 2 part 2 firepower again, and also giving us the bouncing bullets, and we're still lost as to where the evil end of level guardian is, but if we follow the bodies it means that that place is usually where we need to go, and at the end of this body trail there should be a boss. I think 8-Bit Killer is a fun and enjoyable game, and it makes a change from the usual fest of games that we got on the Amiga. It's 3D and it's a step up from Manic Miner. It's got the weapons, it's got the enemies, and it's got a brand new range of levels, and it's also got bouncing bullets which we can avoid thinking that they are the enemy's firepower. You can see that there is a huge body count, and it's not particularly easy, and it's not really very difficult either. All you have to do is to stay safe, and you will be able to progress through all these body parts. I can hear something firing away, and if I collect those weapons downgrades, we'll end up with the weediest weapon, and you can see that the end of the little boss has managed to pin us behind a lorry or a bus, whatever that may be, and it means that we can have to use our bouncing bullets trick just to stay alive. On level 5 you can see things change and step up a gear. It's the same enemies, but they do appear from many places at once and attack us in hordes, so by the time you get to this stage you can't take the game too lightly. And as I say, apart from meaty sound effects, range and a huge great soundtrack as well, the game is impressive and it is highly playable. We're down to our last energy and our last life, and this is as far as I'm going to get with this game. And yes, if you want to see a complete playthrough, if you check out Per Ola Eriksson's site, he's completed this game and recorded it as well. And if not, you can always check it out for yourself and see if you can get further than I did. And it's a great fun blaster, and 2-player mode is even double the mayhem as well. Can you imagine 2-player mode? And so thank you once again for checking out another play guide and review, and I'll see you again soon.